The investigation into the death of Eric Richins began not with a conclusion, but with a question of chemistry. On a night in March 2022, the Utah father of 3 died in his home after consuming a drink laced with a lethal dose of fentanyl. To prosecutors, the timeline of his death was not a tragedy of chance, but the culmination of a deliberate, multi-stage operation. On Monday, after 3 hours of deliberation, a Utah jury provided the answer. They found Kouri Richins guilty of his murder. The state's case relied heavily on the mechanics of procurement. To establish how a suburban mother and grief author obtained a controlled substance, prosecutors called upon Carmen Lauber, a woman whose proximity to the Richins household was defined by her role as their housekeeper. Lauber testified over the course of 2 days, detailing a series of transactions that began in early February 2022. According to her testimony, Kouri Richins initially requested prescription pain medication for an unnamed investor, paying $600 for the acquisition. Days before Valentine's Day, the request escalated. Lauber informed the court that Richins sought something stronger, specifically fentanyl. A third payment of $1,000 followed. While defense attorney Wendy Lewis argued that the evidence failed to establish a direct link between Richins and her husband's death, the jury was presented with a specific chain of custody. Robert Crozier, identified by the state as a former drug dealer, confirmed selling pills to Lauber during that window, though he denied they contained fentanyl at the time. The pills reached the house. Eric Richins did not survive the month. The motive, as framed by the state, was rooted in the rigid mathematics of a prenuptial agreement and a series of clandestine financial maneuvers. Allison Wright, whose husband, a stone mason, was Eric's business partner, testified to a 2019 conversation in which Kouri Richins described herself as trapped. According to Wright, Richins feared that a divorce would leave her financially insolvent while Eric remained secure. This financial pressure was allegedly met with direct action. Prosecutors presented evidence that Richins had altered Eric's life insurance policies and modified his will without his knowledge. Becky Lloyd, a colleague at the masonry business and a personal friend, testified that Richins viewed her husband's death as a preferable alternative to a custody battle she believed she would lose.
Eric was going to take the kids from her and that his family was going to turn the community against her, and she said that in many ways it would be better if he were dead.
The prosecution further introduced Robert Josh Grossman, a man identified in court as Richins' lover. Grossman's testimony, punctuated by the review of text messages sent just 1 day after a failed poisoning attempt in February, detailed a plan for a new life. Richins asked if he would marry her tomorrow if she were divorced. He testified that he would. Before the fatal dose in March, there was the incident in February. This failed attempt served as the foundation for the charge of attempted aggravated murder. On Valentine's Day 2022, Eric Richins suffered a severe medical episode after eating a sandwich prepared by his wife. The jury heard conflicting accounts of the aftermath. While some friends initially viewed the incident as a strange allergic reaction, business partner Kouri Richins testified to hearing fear in his voice when Eric recounted the event. Weeks later, the method shifted from food to drink. On the night of March 3, 2022, Kouri Richins served her husband a Moscow Mule to celebrate a real estate deal. An autopsy later confirmed the drink contained 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl. In the year that followed, Richins leaned into the persona of a grieving widow, even authoring a children's book on loss titled Are You With Me? To help her sons cope. Authorities arrested her shortly after the book's release in May 2023. The conviction of Kouri Richins on charges of aggravated murder, forgery, and fraud brings a legal end to the inquiry, but it leaves the motive's fallout uncontained. While the jury has spoken, the 3 children at the center of the case remain, facing a future defined by a tragedy that was eventually marketed back to them as literature. The verdict provides a legal resolution, but for a family built on the stone, masonry business Eric Richins helped lead, the foundation has been permanently dismantled. The state has its conviction. The community is left to reckon with the silence that follows.